What's the first step in writing a screenplay?
There's an idea, and usually what I know is Beetlejuice, for instance. The idea was that I discussed with my partners a psychedelic ghost comedy. We had no idea what that meant, but it rolled off the tongue, right? And I usually have something of an idea like that, and I kind of know the beginning, and I kind of know the end. The middle is the great unknown. But it's an instinct and an idea, and sometimes it's a character, and sometimes it's a situation. But it's very internal at first. And yes, there's times where you write on assignment, you know, and you're given an idea and say translate this into a movie. But in terms of my own writing, if you will, my personal writing, it usually comes from just the most basic kind of idea and a feeling, you know, and it's like, and I can't articulate it very well. I'm sorry, because it's hard to articulate, but it's just kind of like like a situation or a character that's just kind of waiting to come out. And then whatever your process is, and boy do you need a process, and boy do you need to go to work, and boy do you need to sit down and do it, and do the job of writing, and you allow that character or that situation to just start growing and start coming, you know, leaving your fingers onto the digital page these days, you know, onto your computer, and then it grows and expands and it takes on life, and you know, there's, of course, and this is every writer's choice. There's a lot of talk about backstory, always, you know, like tell it, you know, where did your character go to school? How, you know, what was his or her mommy like, and all of that. I've never written a backstory in my life, never. But if you ask me to tell me the backstory of one of my characters, I could. I'd kind of be making it up as I went along, but the feelings would be true, because I feel the characters, and I feel like they need to come out, and I feel like they need to be given a voice, and that's just that's what writing is to me. An idea or a character or a situation or an emotion or a feeling that you somehow have to put into the world. And it's hard to articulate, and I feel like I'm talking in circles, but it's almost hard not to, because it's so ephemeral in the beginning. You know, I hope that makes some version of sense.
It does, so the middle, it sounds like, is undetermined, but you know an ending when you start something.
I kind of know an ending. I kind of know an ending, but that can all change. But people get very scared of the middle, but for me, that's when it gets fun, because it's so challenging, and you so get to what, you know, in a screenplay, if you think of a screenplay as 110, 120 pages, you get to page 60 and you go, oh my God, I'm only halfway there. What happens next? But something will happen. And that's exhilarating, and it's exhilarating to go to bed completely sure that you will never figure out what's going to happen next, and wake up with the answer. And that, and it's, you know, it's a daily challenge, but it feels so good to realize that next scene will be there if you keep working at it. It's the best feeling in the world. other than finishing. And then finishing, it's like the first draft, no matter what shape it's in, is like brilliant. I mean, that's just, I always get tears in my eyes when I finish a first draft, because I feel like I'm saying goodbye to a group of people that I've been on this journey with. And there's a very emotional side to it. And then, you know, then you become the craftsman and time for a second draft and all of that. But it's an emotional journey, and to do that day after day, it's incredibly rewarding. I've got the best job in the world.
So let's say you're 60 pages in.
Yeah.
And now you're kind of like, what do I do next?
Yeah.
So keeping in the vein of not waiting for inspiration.
Yeah.
And you're treating this as a job. It's like working at a bank.
Yeah.
So what's happening? Let's suppose it's 9 a.m. Monday morning, you're 60 pages in, you've got the cup of coffee, and you're there, and...
I will go back, I will never go back to the beginning, because that is a death trap. I know what I'll do. I'll go back and rewrite the first 60 pages, and then I'll go back and rewrite the first 60 pages again and again. I'll go back and read a couple of pages and maybe do some cosmetic stuff just to get, you know, just to put myself back into the zone of the story. And then I just start writing, and they may not be good ideas. There may be, my drafts are always 20, 30 pages too long. When I finish the first draft, because I'm telling the story to myself. But I forget who it was. I'm going to say Oscar Wilde. I'm going to say some famous writer said, just sit down and start typing your name over and over. Oscar Wilde may have been pre-typewriter, I bet, but you understand the point. Start typing your name. Start doing anything with your fingers. And again, it's like, where that comes from and where that next scene comes from, it's there. It is there. And if you put yourself in a position to find it, you will find it. And I might spend a day writing 10 basically bad pages, but there'll be one page of truth in it, and one moment that will move the story forward. And Stephen King talks about this really brilliantly. And I have questions about outlining, and I'm not here to have an outline debate. He's scathing about outlining. If you've ever read his book on writing, great, probably the best book on writing ever written to my mind. But he always says it's what happens next. It's what happens next, what happens next, what happens next. And, you know, if I were to reach across the room here and steal your notes from you, there would be a response.
Yes.
Or if I were to kick the camera over and say, I'm done with this interview, there would be a response, right? And then it's what happens next. Do you jump on me and say, give me my notes back, you jerk? Do you, I mean, and it's really that, it's kind of gets, and if you just look at it like that, and you look at it like whatever you made happen, something has to happen next, and it's what happens next, what happens next, what happens next, what happens next. That what happens next will come, and it may not come easily, and there may be a lot of, like I said, bad what happens next before you find the right what happens next, but it'll come, and it's a magical process. I mean, magical in the sense that it's almost unexplainable, and it's why there's so many screenwriting programs and apps and all of these things out there to kind of tell you that they can tell you what happens next, but they can't tell you what happens next. Only you can tell you what happens next. And I look at it as a moment-by-moment process. And I put these characters in a situation, and it's often diabolical and it's often otherworldly, and they've got to get themselves either deeper into it or get the hell out of it. And that's the journey, and it's moment by moment, and it's sort of literally second by second if you think about it. You know, movies move forward in a linear fashion, and it's just it's just tracking that and putting your character, and when it really gets fun is when you put your character in the most difficult. Here, can I tell you a quick anecdote that is probably an illustration that I use about this all the time.